Hi, this video is going to be actually on the subversion of truth and conviction, and in particular about Halloween. And I'm also want to store the 175 text I had with a Southern Baptist deacon over the situation. So prior to that week, I sent the first one in October 25th. It's John 8, 9, these are daily texts I send about 47 people. They which heard it being convicted by their own conscience went out one by one, starting at the eldest, even to the last. In order for these men to be convicted and feel guilty, they had to know what was right and wrong, but had forgotten and were ready to kill the woman. The truth is diluted and subverted, and it causes sin when it is. The 26th was the key to conviction is the knowledge of truth. The key to knowledge is intake of knowledge, be it good or bad. So if our knowledge is tainted, then we will have no convictions of that which is wrong. The beginning of knowledge is the fear of the Lord, and no fear, then no beginning of knowledge. So how do we fear God? We have to know Him to fear Him. The next day, the 29th, was the direction of our lives is about decisions and convictions based on what we deem as right. As I said last week, no conviction, no change of mind or turning from. As our belief and desires clash with God's truth, something has to give, and usually it's the truth altered to fit our will and desires and justified. Hence, no conviction. October 29th. If we are disciples of Jesus, we are to act, talk, and live as He did, as an example for all to see the truth in us. It is not easy. It is a war, and the world consumes in its ways, wants, and desires all who succumb to it. Sadly, it has creeped into Christians' lives and into churches who look and act so much like the world you can't tell them apart. How do we get free? October 30th. God's truth alone can set a captive free from sin and tradition. What is truth to the world? It's changeable, subjective, and indefinite. It carries no real value, and it's altered by the majority of at any time in the land and in the churches as well. One by one, things can be changed from truth to falsehood. Truth only sets free if believed and acted upon. Truth is fixed, as is our judgments in disobeying the truth, as in the King James Bible. Now, this all stemmed from a trick-or-trunk that notoriously all Southern Baptist denominations participate in. It's really a war zone for me because of the things that go on, and they dress up. And for instance, as these texts started, and I said that Halloween actually is an evil day to this deacon, and the church shouldn't have anything to do with it, but maybe a prayer service, a vigil, or go out on the streets in normal everyday clothing and witness and hand out tracts, which he rejected. But in getting back to the beginning of these, his first defense was to come back saying there was evil days. First thing he said was 4th of July is an evil holiday that we should not celebrate either. And my response was, well, why is the 4th of July evil? And true it is, and true is we should not be a part, excuse me, sometimes recognition of verbals, when it records your verbal speech, does not come out as right. It's true, if something is evil, we should not participate. One thing's for sure, we absolutely do not celebrate whatsoever anything to do with Halloween for me and my house. His answer was, it is the holiday, talking about the 4th, when more people are killed on the highways by drunk driving. Therefore, Christians should avoid celebrating it because of what it represents. And he also asked me, what scripture do you base that on that I said before in that first text? Well, I told him people are killed by drunk drivers every day of the year. Whether a person gets drunk and drives on any given day has nothing to do with the 4th of July or any other day. How many died the same way on Thanksgiving, New Year's, Christmas? That is not proof that 4th of July is an evil day. That are just men acting out and women in sin by drinking whatever day it is. It just so happens they decide more of them to do it on that given day. The celebration of anniversary of the United States of America's independence is not evil. The scripture that he requested that I gave him about abstaining from Halloween altogether, we have nothing to do with it, is to abstain from the very appearance of evil. And then I added to that at the church that following week before Easter, Halloween, there was a little boy, and the pastor asked him, "Well, what are you going to dress up and come as to trick or trunk?" And he said Freddy Krueger, which is a wicked murderer. And the pastor really didn't say anything, stunned, and the church, of course, was silent. He was going to dress up like that for the trick or trunk in church. His next answer was, he didn't even reply to that. Drunk driving increases on the 4th of July. National Highway Safety Board, therefore, it is an evil day, and Christians should avoid celebrating, just the same as it is evil for churches to have trunk or treat and pass out candy and gospel tracts. Once again, I told him the 4th of July is no sin, that drunk driving occurs at Christmas, New Year's, etc., and has nothing to do with the day being evil, but it has to do with people making bad decisions, which is individual sin, not necessarily the day. Would you be, and then he said, would you have been opposed to Paul presenting the gospel on Mars Hill? And my answer, in your way of thinking, every day is evil then, because thousands die of drunk driving every day, some days way more than others. And he answers, the giving of candy and gospel tracts do not make the 31st of October an evil a day. I'm just pointing out because we celebrate the 4th of July, there are more drunk drivers than any other day of the year. My answer, trick and trunk is not preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, it's accommodating an evil holiday in the church. So again, he asked, preaching in a place of idolatry is evil? Justifying, I answered, will not make it right before God. It is never evil to preach the gospel anywhere. It depends where the Lord sends you, but you don't bring evil into the church, ever, to accommodate a pagan and evil holiday, especially. So he answered, what is the evil that we are bringing to the church? This is my exhortation, I answered, to you and the rest of the people on the text list. Children dressed up in evil costumes and participating in altered pagan day and parties, if you will. If you took your dressed up children out of the church into the street, could you tell the difference between the world and the church children? Well, no. You hand the gospel tract out on the occasion of the pagan holiday and justify it as doing good when they're dressed up and receiving candy just like the pagans. Is it not right, my brother, to do such things? And is it not tainted and a bad habit in many churches? So he says, so because the people that dressed up to worship their idols on that day, Paul was wrong to be there and preach the gospel. No, I told him, the point is Paul didn't dress up like them and play any false role. He stayed and he preached as he was, and he did not preach to them in the church, but where they were at in sin. And he condemned the sin as well. The deacon says, I'm not dressing up to hand out candy. We dress up every Sunday to go to church. My answer, all your church children are dressing up just like the pagans with treats and candies. Come on. You know better. You're a grown man. You know what the appearance of evil is, and you know how evil that holiday is if you've studied out the origins of Halloween at all. All leaders that allow others uh, that allow these things are accountable, including the church members in allowing it as well, and participating in it, filling the children's minds with memories and habits to be continued on in their lives and on in the church as well. Again, I ask, he says, does Paul violate this command by preaching on Mars Hill? I answered, I'm driving, I'll have to answer later. Okay, I'm back. Almost back from St. Louis. We're not talking about a command, but a biblical principle of daily living in abstaining from the appearance of evil, from all evil. Abstaining is the key word. The gospel can be preached anywhere, anytime that the Lord so directs. Participating collectively and individually in Halloween is violating that principle. It is not going out preaching the gospel somewhere. It's dressing up and having a party like the world does on the pagan holiday. He says, and sharing the gospel through tracts is not the same as preaching. We are not celebrating Satan when we give out candy and tracts. It is not an evil thing to do so any day of the year. We are called to share the gospel wherever and whenever we can. If Paul didn't have a problem sharing the gospel on Mars Hill, I have no problem sharing the gospel in the church, or its parking lot, or a building.